Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It's May the 12th, and we're looking at 1 Chronicles and chapter 4. And we have the genealogy of Judah. Now, these genealogies, they may seem very inane to us, very uninteresting to us, but of course, for Israel, it's their lifeblood, literally. It is something of infinite importance, not only in their history, but in their ongoing daily lives, because in these genealogies we have specified where they lived, because where they lived was given to families according to lot. And not only that, but we have recorded by the chronicler certain details about the lives of these people which are outstanding. These are the stories, and these are the outstanding events of the life of Israel in those days. So it begins with the sons of Judah, and it goes on down the names, name after name after name. So and so begat so and so, so and so begat so and so. And then in verse 9 it stops, and in verse 9 we have something said that's outstanding. It says, Jabez was more honourable than his brethren, and his mother called his name Jabez, because I bear him with sorrow. You see, in some strange way, the exceedingly difficult birth of Jabez caused his mother to name him in this particular way. And then in verse 10 we have something else. It says, Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, Oh, that thou wouldst bless me indeed, and enlarge my coast, and that thy hand might be with me, and that thou wouldst keep me from evil, that it may not grieve me. And God granted him that which he requested. And so, in the history of Israel, God suddenly stops the genealogy to tell us about a man that prayed. It tells us what his prayer was, and it tells us that God heard his prayer. You know, my password for today is a little phrase at the end of verse 10. It says, God granted him that which he requested. And I think that when we get to glory, and we're in heaven, and we're there talking about all the life of Israel and the life of the church and all the things that have occurred down the ages, the thing that will stand out is this, is that there were times in our life, and times in the life of Israel, and times in the life of the church, when someone prayed and God heard. Amazing thought, amazing thought. And then we go on down the passage. It's just names after names after name. From verse 24 we have the sons of Simeon, and that goes on down. Suddenly in verse 38 the story breaks again. It says, these mentioned by their names were princes in their families, and the house of their fathers increased greatly, and they went to the entrance of Gedor, even unto the east side of the valley, to seek pasture for their flocks. You see, Israel and these tribes, it was a confederacy of tribes. That's how we would describe Israel. But they were a pastoral people. It was sheep that was the main product of Israel. And they were always looking for pasture for their flocks. You can't increase your flocks. You can't even feed the ones you've got unless you have the pasture. It says that they went to seek pasture for their flocks, and they found fat pasture and good, and the land was wide and quiet and peaceable, for they of Ham had dwelt there of old. Now let's just stop a moment and think about this. Who were the Hamites? Well, you see, Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the Hamites included a man called Canaan. And that's why the land is called the land of Canaan, because this is where the family of Ham went to live. When Abraham came into the land of Canaan in the beginning, he would have found it inhabited by the dark-skinned people that descended from Ham. And these, written by name, came in the days of Hezekiah king of Judah, and smote their tents and the inhabitants that were found there, and they destroyed them utterly unto this day, and dwelt in their room, because there was pasture for their flocks. So this is what I call the pasture wars. You know, the great thing that Israel always struggled to obtain was pasture for the flocks. And in this particular case, there was a war over the pasture for the flocks. But this wasn't a war between Israel. It was a war between Israel and their enemies. And of course, the tribes were always looking for room to live. This was a great issue. It's a great issue even to today. Then in chapter 5, we have the sons of Reuben. Then we have a little postscript there in verse 1. It says, "For he was the firstborn, for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy was not reckoned after the birthright. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him became the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph's." So what it's saying is this, is that Reuben was the first to be born, and he would normally have the firstborn rights. And the firstborn rights would be that he would be priest for the family, and he would be the ruler of the family in his father's place, and he would also have a double portion of the inheritance. But Reuben was a thoroughly bad guy, and so his firstborn rights were taken from him, and the authority amongst the family and in the tribes was given to Judah. Judah prevailed above his brethren. Now, it doesn't mention it here, but we know that the priestly function was given to Levi, and Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, enjoyed the double portion of the blessing. You see, there was always a double portion of the blessing for the firstborn, and so these two boys enjoyed the firstborn blessings each. And then we have the story moves on. It's very interesting, you know, in these genealogies, how the chronicler will speak about a list of names, and then he will then stop and tell us something significant. From verse 11, we have the children of Gad. Nothing particularly stunning happens there. Then we have the sons of Reuben, and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They were valiant men able to bear the buckler and the sword, and to shoot with a bow, skillful in war. There were 44,760 that went out to war, and they made war with the Hagarites, Jetur, Naphish, and Nobab, and they were helped against them. And the Hagarites were delivered into their hand, and all that were with them, for they cried to God in battle, and he was entreated for them, because they put their trust in him. You see the point? And in verse 22, for there fell down many slain, because the war was of God. This wasn't men going on a rampage. This was something of God. It was God that was conquering the nations that had inhabited the land. But it was a spiritual thing. They cried unto God in battle, and God heard them, because they put their trust in him. And then we have verse 23, the children of the half-tribe of Manasseh. They were mighty men of valor, famous men, heads of the house of their fathers, but they transgressed against the God of their fathers, and they went a whoring after the gods of the people of the land, who God destroyed before them. And the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pugh, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, the Reubenites, the Gabites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Hala, to Habor, Hara, and to the river Gozan, unto this day. So when the person was writing this chronicle, they were still there. They were still there. And of course, we've just discovered, haven't we? We've been talking about this, how that the half tribe of Manasseh have recently been discovered. They are they're near to where the Khyber Pass is, which is off towards Nepal. And they've managed to keep themselves together as a tribe. They still worship the God of Jacob, but they're surrounded by enemies. And so therefore they're in great fear of their lives. Then in chapter 6 we have the sons of Levi. And it goes on right down the list. In verse 31 we have, let me read it. It says, "And these are they who David set over the service of song in the house of the Lord, after that the ark had rest. And they ministered before the dwelling place of the tabernacle of the congregation with singing, until Solomon had built the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. And then they waited on their office according to their order." So the part of the work of the Levites was to sing. And they were all part of this. It was an office. It was something that they were given to do. Now in verse 49 we have Aaron and his sons offered upon the altar for burnt offering and upon the altar of incense, and were appointed for all the work of the place most holy, and to make an atonement for Israel, according to all that Moses the servant of God had commanded. And 53, "And these are the dwelling places throughout their castles in their coasts of the sons of Aaron, of the families of the Kohathites, for theirs was the lot." And there was a whole raft of cities. Now the Levites didn't have a particular territory unique to themselves. They were dispersed throughout the whole of Israel, and they had many cities to dwell in. They were not allowed to be farmers, because their work was to look after the service of the Lord. But they could have small gardens where they grew herbs, and their main life was dedicated to the service of the Lord. So although this is full of names, it's not something that we can read straight off like a little story. This is a list, and it's a list of names. And lists are always hard to read, especially if we can't pronounce all the words, especially if we can't pronounce all the names. But we don't treat it as a story to be read. We treat it as a list to be referred to. Well, God bless you. Great to speak to you. Look forward to speaking to you tomorrow. Bye for now.